Alright everybody, I'm going to try and do this as quick and easily as possible. First off, a big disclaimer at the front. I'm not an HVAC guy, I'm not a licensed contractor, but I can build houses, do light electrical, do a lot of construction stuff. So, don't do what I did, but this is what I did. So here's what I got. It's a 1992 Rheem Classic X, and the thing just started buzzing on me. One day when it was running, all of a sudden it just got noisy. Came outside, no fan moving in there. Darn it, what the hell's wrong with it? Turned the thing off, tried to start to figure out what was wrong with it. Really had no idea about air conditioners, so started to go online in this forum, or maybe where you're seeing this at, some YouTube videos, and figured I might as well give it a good cleaning at the same time. So I'm lucky enough, I've got a 220 box right here, a shut off switch for it, so I can just kill that and there's nothing getting into it. So first thing I did was took off all the grates. You've got tons of these little screws around here. If you don't have this kind of air conditioner, you might be able to apply some of these same things to yours. Took it off, from here, took this side panel, this corner panel off, which has the electrical behind it and capacitor leads and contactor. Took this side off, and then the coils that are inside, on all the sides that go around in here, that curve around. Took a brush, brushed them front, inside, outside, try and get the dust and dirt out of it. Took a vacuum cleaner with a brush end on it. See if you can see anything inside. There you go. Yeah, there you go. You see down in here, the side walls. Took a vacuum with a brush on it. Did it from the inside and the outside with these, sides pulled away from it. It got it nice and clean. I was surprised to see how much dirt was down here on the bottom, on the ground, and dried up leaves and everything. So cleared all that out, got that nice and clean. Well, of course, I had to take this top piece off in order to do that. So I had this up and just leaning up. I couldn't get it all the way out because the wires from the motor that hangs down right underneath here. I don't know if you can see. Yeah, there's that label there is attached, is sticking on the motor. So when you pull this thing up and have it stand up, you got the wires running from the motor down to here to go down into here. So you can't just pull this thing off. That's a good way to clean it, but you got to figure out if it's really your motor or not before you go cutting these wires to take the whole lid off. So anyway, I followed the guys' advice online and in the forums, tested a couple things, made sure just with the tester that there was no electricity running through any of the contacts or wires down there on the capacitor or anything. You should definitely read up about how to discharge a capacitor. I didn't have any charge in it, as I read online. Most capacitors discharge just after being off after a certain amount of time, but don't take my word for it. I'm not an electrician guy, so read up on that, and you'll see online you can discharge it by crossing the contacts here. So I did that. I connected a ground wire to just to the grate, and then tapped them all, see if I can get rid of it, and crossed them as well. Now, the first thing somebody told me was take a look at the capacitor, see if it's rounded, like it's blowing up inside or has any grease or anything leaking from it. Well, this capacitor, it sticks through a little metal piece down below here, so it's inside here like this. So when you're looking at it from the top, you don't see the leads. You don't see these leads over here because these are sticking through basically a little wall with a hole in it. But you see the back end of it sticking out like this. So I looked down and I said, yeah, look at it. It's nice and flat. It's not bubbled out on the sides or anything. So yeah, capacitor must be good, right? So it's got to be the motor, because my first problem was just and seemed like condenser and everything else was working, just not the fan motor. And but another great tip was, turn on if you've got, because I wasn't testing pressure and all the voltage and everything like that, like an HVAC guy would do on each item. I did check to make sure the contactor, you look up what that contactor is. It's a little magnetic thing, and when electricity is applied to it, it'll close, so it makes the contact. So you can check to see if that's still happening, even though your thing is buzzing. You can make sure the contactor is going forward and actually making the contact. Also, if the coil around the outside is really getting hot, that's still working, and mine was still getting really hot. So I said my gut feeling is it's the motor or the fan motor. So this is basically all I used to do the job with to get this thing done. So I went online and ordered this exact fan motor. You can see this thing was manufactured in '92 and everything, but this happens to be my motor, and it's a GE Emerson, which if you go to North American HVAC, I don't work for them, this is not a sales thing for them, but yeah, North American HVAC is where I got it from. It's just NorthAmericanHVAC.com, and that's about the only place I could find that they would sell to retail. It's out in Indiana. Came in this box, free shipping. It was 109 bucks. And everybody said replace your capacitor at the same time, so I got a capacitor, which was a ProTech. You just gotta give them the right information on it. It's a little out of focus here, but make sure you get the right capacitor. Just look, look exactly what's on your capacitor, and you just got to give them all that info. Same thing with the motor. Just give them all this info. And when you search this model number, this K55HX JKL-2918, you'll see it come up right away. And then same thing with the capacitor. So I unscrewed, this. It's got 4 screws in the sides to keep it onto the top of that metal grate pointing downward. So I unscrewed it to get it off of there. Wasn't sure, let's see if I should cut the wires here, but because I didn't really want to rewire it. The new motor comes with lines all the way through, and I really didn't want to like reconnect anything, but ultimately I cut these to make it easier. I was thinking about leaving these lines, which run down to the contactor and to the capacitor. I was thinking about leaving them on those and then just reattaching these ends to the new motor, but then that means I would have cut the new motor's wires too, so I just used everything from the new motor. Well, first problem is, as you see, there's a YouTube video where a guy takes this out really quickly. Does a great job of it because he's an HVAC guy. Well, I'm not, but I tried to do what he was doing. And you want to, you've got the fan on here. The fan is on top of here, so in order to get that thing off, you got to get it off the shaft here. And mine was rusted, so I sanded it like I saw him do. I shot a little WD-40 in there to try and, loosen it up. Unscrewed it. Couldn't get the damn thing off. I mean, it was just not moving after lots of pounding and pulling and all that stuff. It was just not going to come up. But you want to make sure you don't bend up your fan blades, or it's going to run unbalanced and then make a lot of noise later on. So anyway, ultimately, I'm just trying to figure out 2 o'clock in the morning and trying to be quiet for the neighbors. How the heck am I going to get this thing off of here? I don't know if you can. I guess you can curse on YouTube, right? For sure. Anyway, and ultimately, what I ended up doing was, okay, I'm going to try and bust the shaft out of here and punch it through, right? So I can get it out. And it's so hard to hold on to these things or clamp them down to a workbench when you got a huge fan on it too at the same time. You HVAC guys are probably laughing your ass off right now at me, which I don't blame you, because ultimately what I ended up doing was hacksawing this freaking shaft. So I got the fan finally loose on here so it could move up and down, but since I had pounded on the top of this shaft with a hammer to try and push this thing down and get it out, now this was too wide up top and the fan couldn't come up and get off of here because I had flattened the top of it and now it wasn't going to come off for sure. So I got the fan being able to move up and down, hacksawed this thing above the fan, and then was able to slip the fan off finally. And as you can see, all this damage back in here, I learned what's inside of these things, which is a lot of grease packing, and here's just some of the broken parts off of this thing as I was just trying to obliterate it in any way I could to get that thing off of there. So since I was also replacing the capacitor, you have to slide this thing out through that metal hole, and lo and behold, actually, it was really tough to get out. Well, now when I really look at the thing, it was really tough to get out because the sides actually are pushed out a little bit. They're a little rounded, and you see on the top here too, this is a little rounded. Like this, this lead is not perfect. They're not all perfectly straight up. You can see that a little bit of arc in them, you see. So actually the capacitor did blow and was bad because it is puffed up here on the top, you can see. But looking down at it, you know, while it was still in there, it looked like it was totally fine and flat. So quite honestly, ultimately this motor may have still been good and just the capacitor blew. I don't know, but this motor's really old, 1992, so, and it's 2011, so I figure it's good anyway, even if I did all this work just for a fucking blown capacitor. So anyway, once I got that out there, I mean, the problem also was you get this new motor and it's got five wires on it, different colors. You don't know where the hell they go, but they give you a diagram with it, and you can't just, you know, you got the orange, brown, and black here on your old one, but you just can't go, you know, if I wrote down, of course, and it's a good idea, take a picture of how the wires are on your old capacitor, right? And you see on the side here it says fan and therm. It's hard to read that. And then C in the middle, common. So anyway, it's best to take a picture of it, but I just drew a diagram of it where the wires were hooked up on mine, purple, black, red, black, orange, and the wires, and I wrote down where the wires were coming from. This is coming off the fan motor. This is coming from the fan motor, the brown that was coming down in. So anyway, look at their diagram, and depending on how many wires you have, 3-wire hookup or 4-wire hookup, this is how you should do it. This little symbol here is the capacitor, and you see you can run it clockwise. Boy, this is so hard to read with this video camera phone. Clockwise is here and counterclockwise is here. So make note of which direction your fan turns before you take it off of there. There's a little arrow actually on the bottom of the fan pointing in the direction it should turn. Mine was counterclockwise, which I think a lot are, but I'm not sure. So that means on the new motor I had to take the orange and purple, I'm sorry, I had to take the brown and the yellow and actually stick them together. So, you know, this isn't a brown and a yellow, but I literally, you know, you have to put these two things together, you know, tape it up with electrical tape. You know, it's probably best if you cut these two and put, you know what I mean, and strip them and put a cap on it, and then tape it up. So anyway, you stick the brown, for me, going counterclockwise and having 3 wires on my old motor. I had to put the brown and the yellow together. The black was going to the circuit board, you know, per my old diagram. And looking online for some diagrams and for some videos about how to hook this capacitor back up. This purple was going to the fan contact on the capacitor, and the orange was going to the common on the center one. This center one, the orange was going to the common on the capacitor. So just look at, you know, what you've got, take a picture of it, draw it out a diagram of what you originally had on your capacitor before you pull it out of there, and then take a look at the diagram that comes along with this. So strapped in the new or screwed in the new fan, you might have posts on the fan that are sticking out that you may have to cut in order to keep the thing flat up against the grate. Put the fan back on at the same height as it was before, up on the shaft, you know, so I measured that before I took it off of there. And then once it's in and the lid is back down, basically make sure that it, you know, it turns around freely. So after putting all these, you know, putting this all back on, lowering this down with the new motor in it, see it in there again, and spinning the fan around both ways, make sure it's clear, not contacting anything. Capacitor is now hooked up. This was all back together, making sure there's no loose wires or anything. Ran this really cleanly, just like the HVAC guys were saying online. You see the ground wire as well that you can just ground to the grate. That's what I did. There's a spot for it there. And then you actually can run the wires. There's a little underneath here. There's another little piece of strip of metal that goes along the side that will keep your wires in there nice and clean to get back here. Because as the pros, you know, we're saying, don't want to leave wires hanging around there. and they show you some crappy jobs by HVAC guys where the wire's sticking out, you know, because they just want to do it quickly, or they will just hook up the capacitor, you know, they'll leave the old capacitor in there, they'll just hook up the new capacitor and leave it inside of there, just hanging loose, which is obviously not the right way to do it. Anyway, so sorry for the long, boring explanation, but I had to piece together a whole bunch of videos and stuff in order to try and figure this out and do it on my own. So I did, and hopefully this makes it a little more clear and comprehensive than the others. But once again, not an HVAC guy. Up to you what you do. Be careful. Make sure you can cut off that 220. Make sure you test there's no 220 there. And you know, if it's compressor and all this other stuff, you know, you got test pressure and all that, beyond me, so I'll come into that. But I know I saved at minimum several $100s for this. I did find one place that would sell retail locally on that fan. They wanted 3 times the cost. They're like, well, $284 for it. And all the other places would not sell because, you know, I'm not a contractor with a license. Anyway, turn this thing on. It purrs smoothly and beautifully. And actually the condenser tank now sweats. It never sweated before. I assume that means it's really getting nice and cold. And that's why it's sweating, and everything's nice and clean in here. It runs nice and quiet. Just make sure you don't lose any of these screws so you can keep everything, you know, screwed down so it won't be vibrating and make lots of noise. And hopefully it's going to run now for another, was that 92 to 2011? So a lot of years, so hopefully it's going to run a lot longer. But one other thing though, I wasn't happy about this. You see, this is a ProTech motor. When I was chatting online with North American HVAC, they said this would be a GE Emerson under another name like Enneek or something, who bought it out, and they were made in Mexico, which is fine because the original GE Emerson was made in Mexico. But what ended up showing up was this ProTech made in China. So North American HVAC, that's not cool. But I saw lots of guys using ProTech as a general one to replace it. And so if the HVAC guys are using it, hopefully that means it's going to work along for me. So long, boring video, but hopefully it gave you some info and make it easier for you the next time. All right, see you, everybody.